we'll briefly discuss an overview to start. That'll give you kind of the baseline of the product and how it was made and kind of some of the features in there. We'll talk about getting started, for your first install, opening up the box. We'll dive into the hardware and what's inside. We'll go over the software and programming. We'll talk about the user interface, more of the customer-facing interface and some of the programming there. Then we'll also talk about Alarm.com Air Effects, the Qolsys dealer portal, and Q&A. Now at the end of the session, we will issue CEU certificates. That'll take a day or two to issue, but we should be able to get those out relatively quickly. The webinar software that we're using actually tracks who's in attendance. It tracks when you log in, when you log out, and if you're attentive or if you're clicking on other screens and not paying attention. So in order to get credit for today's webinar, we need you to stay logged in the entire time. And if you want CEU credit, that is, we need you to stay logged in the entire time and be fairly attentive to the program. Otherwise, we're unable to issue that. Okay, so that kind of gets through all the formalities. We'll go ahead and dive in here and get started with an overview of the Qolsys IQ panel. Now, I do have one slide real quick on the company, on Qolsys as a company. I feel like if you understand a little bit where Qolsys comes from, the background, that will help you understand the product better, how it was created, and kind of what goes into the product. And if you understand that better, then you'll be able to better install it, troubleshoot it, service it, etc. So quickly on Qolsys. Qolsys is an acronym, actually. It stands for Quality of Life Systems. It's kind of an interesting way to spell it and sometimes hard to say, but that's what it stands for. We're based out of Silicon Valley, San Jose, Northern California, and we were founded by two individuals who traditionally did not come from the alarm space. They came from the high-tech space. We were founded, by the way, in 2010, so it's been just over 5 years. Of course, the first couple years were R&D development and getting the product to market, and the product has now been in market for close to 2 years, about a year and a half. It's been in full market. But anyway, founded by two guys that traditionally did not come from the alarm space. They came more from the high-tech, the computing space there in Silicon Valley, and they felt like the alarm space or the connected home space was really ready for some change. And keep in mind, this is in 2010. So in 2010, still the vast majority of alarm systems, still looked like, quite frankly, like the way they did in 1980. Most of the alarm systems that were out there that were installed were still what we call rubber number pads. They were a 10-key, and they didn't do very much as opposed to what consumer technology was doing in 2010. Again, in 2010, we were already on our third iPhone, so people are carrying around very powerful computing devices in their pocket. It's a touch screen. It's got a great user experience, a great interface. It's intuitive, and it really is what people would expect to have in the modern day and age. Our founders really saw the disparity between what was in their pocket and what was in their home from a security perspective, and that's really kind of the impetus for Qolsys and how we got started. From the very beginning, we knew that we wanted our approach to be a little bit different. We wanted to start with an actual computer platform. We knew that it should be flexible, it should be updatable and upgradable. We wanted it to be forward-thinking, right? Always innovating. We knew we wanted it to meet consumers' expectations for smartphone and tablets. Again, I'll reference back to 2010. People were on their third iPhone, and they want something that looks and feels similar to that and has a similar experience. We want to make sure that it's 100% remotely accessible, so for the dealer or the end user, so that once you install it, you can service it remotely. We wanted it to look upscale but be affordably priced and be fast and easy to install. So also in the beginning, we picked several partners to partner up with, and one is Android. The IQ panel actually runs the Android operating system. That's the actual software that's running on the panel, the operating system. what that really does for us, Qolsys, is allows us to develop a lot of unique features very quickly. We don't have to reinvent the wheel on everything. Android it gives us a great starting place, a great platform to build on. Now we're not just running kind of an off-the-shelf Android. You know, you can't load Angry Birds on the panel and play video games in the hallway and things like that. But at its base layer, we are running a version of Android that allows us to develop things quickly. So you see here on the screen things like video, custom text-to-speech, language translation, etc. All those types of things are built into Android and gives us a great starting point to then go build a security system off of. And most importantly, it's upgradable, it's flexible, you know, it's updatable over the air, so we can send down software updates to the panel. So Android has been a great partner for us and a great starting place. Our second partner was Alarm.com. Hopefully you're all familiar with Alarm.com by now. Alarm.com was founded in the year 2000. They basically invented the interactive security space, one of the first to do that. Our panel is always connected to Alarm.com. It doesn't have a POTS line. There is no landline built into the back of the panel. We knew that to be able to do what we wanted to do, we would need to be connected to a cloud server all the time, and Alarm.com is that cloud server. So we'll talk about it a little bit later, but we connect to them over the cellular network and over IP or the Wi-Fi as well. And because our platform was designed with Alarm.com in mind, kind of from the ground up, rather than an afterthought, rather than clipping a module in after the fact, we were really able to design a very cohesive experience between Qolsys and Alarm.com, and that goes for the end user as well as the dealer. So things like remotely accessing settings, remotely changing values and settings, things like that, is all possible through Alarm.com and through our partnership there. Our third partner is Foxconn. Now, most of you may have never heard of Foxconn. I always say that they're the largest company in the world that no one's ever heard of. Some savvy people may have heard of them before, but they actually are the largest hardware manufacturer in the world. They build every iPhone, every iPad. They build Dell computers, Cisco routers, Xbox Connect. Basically, you name it in the consumer space, they build it. And they are known for you know, excellent vertical integration, excellent quality, supply chain, distribution of components, products, things like that. And through some special relationships that our founders had from some of their previous ventures with Foxconn, we're able to actually manufacture our panel in their facility, which brings a lot to the table. And you'll see that in the product as you touch and feel it. It's made very, very well. And lastly, our fourth partner is Tyco. Now, you've likely all heard of Tyco security products. Tyco has the largest security portfolio in the world. They have 57,000 employees. They're in 140 countries globally. So a very large player in our industry, in the security space. And they actually made an investment in Qolsys, a strategic investment about a year ago, not quite a year ago. And what that's really allowed Qolsys to do is to continue to develop technology at a rapid pace. Really kind of gives us the financial freedom to go out and continue to do what we love to do, develop products that make people's lives better. So kind of jumping right into the panel, an overview of the panel, you'll often hear us say our tagline or our phrase, all in one, always connected. And the IQ panel is built unlike any other security panel. It's really built out of the box a lot more like a tablet, where everything comes pre-configured, everything comes pre-shielded, pre-routed, and really designed to work as an entire system. So we actually have 6 radios on board the panel. They're all built in. They all come this way directly from the factory. The first radio up here you see on the left is the cellular radio, and we make that in a couple different flavors. So just like you can buy an AT&T phone or a Verizon phone or things like that, you can buy separate versions of the panel. We sell it in a CDMA Verizon version. We sell it in an HSPA, AT&T Rogers, and Telefonica version. So that AT&T is for the US, Rogers is for Canada, and Telefonica is for Mexico. That enables us to be in all of North America. We use the cellular channel for two-way voice, and it's fully Alarm.com integrated. The second radio we have on board is the Wi-Fi radio. And again, at the time that we put a Wi-Fi radio in the panel, that was a pretty unique thing for a security platform to have two radios built in all the time, both cellular and Wi-Fi. We use the Wi-Fi radio for a lot of different things. You know, Wi-Fi is a great pipe to have, assuming you have the cellular there as well. The Wi-Fi is a nice big pipe. It's a fast pipe into the panel. We use it for dual path connectivity, so that's something that we were the first to do. We actually, all the signals that come in and out of the panel are actually over cellular and Wi-Fi simultaneously. So rather than having a primary path and a secondary path that only gets used if something fails, we actually use the cellular and the Wi-Fi path at the exact same time. And that really helps reduce speed, helps reduce latency, increase speed, and enhance reliability between the panel and the central station, being able to talk both channels at the exact same time. We also use Wi-Fi for over-the-air updates. So I mentioned earlier on an earlier slide that we can send out over-the-air updates and send new software down to the panel. We use the Wi-Fi channel for that. It allows us to do large, robust updates in a very short amount of time. Our average update takes 3 to 5 minutes to install, which is nice. And then we can also use the Wi-Fi radio for things like Wi-Fi devices. And today we use that for what we call the IQ2, which is a secondary keypad. Maybe they want the homeowner needs extra keypads in the master bedroom or by the garage. We can add up to 3 Wi-Fi keypads today. The third radio on board is the security RF radio. That's the third radio that's built right in. And we use that radio for all of the traditional life safety sensors, security sensors, you know, doors, motions, glass breaks, smokes, carbons, pendants, fobs, all that stuff that you're used to installing today. That all operates on the security radio. And the security radio that we use is on the 319.5 megahertz frequency. And we support up to 59 of those zones, so 59 319 devices, which covers the vast majority of installs that we see happening in the country today, in the residential marketplace. The fourth radio that we have on board is a Z-Wave radio, and you're likely familiar with Z-Wave by now. It's emerged as kind of the home control, home automation frequency for the security channel. Today we support up to 69 total Z-Wave devices. It's broken down into the categories you see on the screen here. So 5 thermostats, 30 lights, 6 door locks, 18 smart sockets, and a smart socket is a device that we make. It's kind of like a lamp module, but it actually measures the energy being used, does power metering, and up to 10 other devices. And other devices could be things like a Z-Wave siren or a Z-Wave remote temperature sensor, a whole home meter, basically anything that doesn't fall into these other 4 categories. So Z-Wave is a great technology that's built right into the panel. We're going to talk more about Z-Wave later as we get into the training, how to program it, some do's and don'ts of Z-Wave, how to optimize the Z-Wave network, some of the tools that are available to you, things like that. So we'll spend a good portion later in programming on Z-Wave and kind of teach you how to do that. And then the 5th radio we have on board is the image sensor. And if you're familiar with alarm.com, you likely know about the image sensor. If you're not familiar with alarm.com, you may not know about the image sensor. The image sensor is not made by Qolsys. It's actually made by alarm.com. But it's a device that we liked so much that we put the actual image sensor frequency or image sensor radio into every single Qolsys panel. So we can handle up to 5 image sensors natively out of the box. An image sensor is essentially a traditional PIR or motion detector that also has a built-in still camera on board that allows you to take pictures during alarm events. It allows you to take pictures on peek-in, you know, kind of at will from your app. It allows you to set up various rules and things like that based on motion, and then also delivers a picture as well, which is really a nice step above a traditional motion detector. Now, when I started this slide, I said we have 6 radios embedded in the panel, but I only listed 5. And that's because the 6th radio we're not using today. The 6th radio that's on the panel is Bluetooth. We're not actively using Bluetooth today, but kind of speaking to the core architecture of the panel and the way it was designed, we knew that because we could update the software, we may want to use Bluetooth for something in the future. Now, I don't know what that's going to be. Maybe it's a Bluetooth proximity app on your smartphone that adds either an ease of use, so it can automatically disarm when it senses your smartphone, or maybe it adds an extra layer of security, provides an extra authentication layer, so you have to have the Bluetooth authentication and your code to disarm the system. So both of those things are a good example of something that's possible with Bluetooth. Maybe it's a Bluetooth lock. Kwikset makes a Bluetooth lock now. Maybe it's a Bluetooth light bulb. There's all kinds of devices coming out on Bluetooth, and we wanted to be able to have that on the panel and couple that with the flexible software to be able to use that hardware in the future. So that's the 6th radio on board. Moving on here, we have the panel camera right in the middle, up at the top here. Quite a unique feature. We use it to take disarmed photos. So every time the panel is disarmed, the camera takes a photo and stores that image on the panel here locally. You can see that image from the panel. We also take alarm photos, so during an alarm event we take pictures as well, and then we'll be using that for future features. Now, to be clear, today all the pictures that are taken from this panel camera are stored here locally on the panel. They don't yet push to the alarm.com cloud. That is something that we're working on with alarm.com, and you guys will actually see that launching here very shortly. Possibly by the end of the year. If not by the end of the year, then sometime at the very beginning of next year, you'll be able to see that those pictures get pushed out to alarm.com. So we're very, very close on that, and we're excited about that. And that'll just be a simple software update and a package on alarm.com. We have an apps icon here on the right-hand side of the screen where we house a bunch of miscellaneous features and functions, things like photo frame, adjusting the sound. You can change the language from there. There's a dealer contact icon here at the bottom, the little phone icon, and if you touch this icon, it actually will have all your information, all the dealer information there. So it can have your logo, it'll say ABC Security, there's a message center inside there. You can actually push messages down to your customers, things like your bill is past due, etc. We have onboard help videos right here. You see the little help icon at the footer. And this is a great example of where Android really helps us develop quickly and bring a new feature to life that we think is pretty important. So we didn't have to go build a video player from scratch, because in the Android operating system, every Android device has a built-in video player kind of already there out of the box. So we just tweaked that a little bit, and we turned that into a help video center where customers can watch short 30-second videos on how to use the system, how to arm, how to disarm, how to bypass sensors, things like that. There's an SD card slot on the left-hand side, right behind the trim plate here. Homeowners can just slide in an SD card, and they can use that to load their own photos on the panel, so it turns into a nice photo frame. But dealers can also use it for software updates. So the preferred method for updating the system is over Wi-Fi. But if the customer doesn't have Wi-Fi in the home for whatever reason, or no internet in the home, then you can simply update the panel with an SD card. You slide the SD card in, you hit update software, and you slide the SD card out. So really nice backup method to do that. Now moving on to the bottom row here, we do have a 24-hour battery built in. It's a nice lithium-ion battery. Same type of battery you'd see in a smartphone or a computer today. Lasts a long time. We have a microphone built in for two-way voice. You have the hard buttons on the front here, the home and the emergency button, which make navigation on the panel easy to get all the way back to the home page, or easy to get to the emergency page if you need to, regardless of where you are in the menu. There's two different speakers on the panel, which you'll see, and there's also a siren as well, which is nice and loud. So that's kind of it for the hardware overview. I'm going to recap here real quick on some of the key features. You've got the 7-inch touchscreen. You've got the Android operating system, which gives it that appified look and feel, makes it very user-friendly, easy to use, future-proofs it, also helps us develop really quickly and do over-the-air software updates. You've got the 6 wireless radios, all built in with no external antennas. And you'd be surprised how well these work. They were all designed to work together They were all shielded to work together. You don't have to drop any antennas in the wall to get cell service. I'd say 99% of the time we get much better cell service on this panel than we do than you will on your smartphone. You know, we have a lot better, a lot bigger antenna, a lot better shielding, larger form factor to be able to do that, constant power, things like that. So that was all designed to work quite well together. You have the panel camera right on the front. You've got local help videos built in, which we talked about. And multiple languages, another great feature of Android that we're able to take advantage of and kind of leverage. Today we have 3 languages on the panel, all on a single SKU. You don't need to buy a separate SKU for French or for Spanish. It's simply the flick of a button and the entire panel will change from English to Spanish or Spanish to French. That's the text that you see on the screen. That's the voice that you hear. That's everything. And we'll be adding more in the future. Upgrade services, really nice to be able to update the panels over the air, add new features, fix existing issues, etc. You've got the dealer portal, which adds nice co-branding and messaging for you, the dealer, to really own that account and have that on the panel. The native support for 5 image sensors, and the dual path connectivity. This one's my favorite. If you've ever used interactive services on another alarm panel and you've noticed the latency from the time you send the command to the time the command is affected at the panel, with the dual path connectivity, the Wi-Fi and the cellular going out at the exact same time, not only do you have that redundancy and that security, but you also get that speed and that reduced latency on the system, which makes the usability, the everyday usability, because Wi-Fi is up the vast majority of the time, that user experience is really, really enhanced. And then it's fast and easy to install. And you guys will see this as we go through it today, and as you play with the panel yourself. It really is easy to use. Everything's an icon, everything is text. I often say installation manual built in. Just like your smartphone, it probably came with a manual. Maybe it was only a page or 2 long on getting started. You kind of just knew how to use your smartphone because the manual is basically built into it. You know, everything's an icon, everything is just, you surf around until you find what you need, and you'll be able to do that with this panel here. So that kind of gives you a good overview of the panel architecture and feature set. Now we do make a full lineup of sensors as well that goes with that. So again, door windows, small and large. We have a recess sensor that's coming out here in the next month or 2. And the whole rest of the gamut, from smoke and carbon and flood and temp and you know, Z-wave sirens and translator devices. You know, we make a lot of different translator devices, hardwire translators, so you can use existing wires in the walls, wireless translators, so that you can use existing wireless sensors in the home, be it from another manufacturer, all kinds of stuff, as well as the secondary tablets, etc. So you can see it's a robust ecosystem that we support and enable through the IQ panel. All right, so hopefully that gives you a good overview of the kind of the platform. Again, the goal with giving you that overview as it relates to the technical training here today is so that you really understand what some of the possibilities are, what it can do, and kind of where it came from, what its roots are, and how it's designed to work together. Ideally, if you understand that, that will really start to help you understand the product better. It's much more like a computer than maybe what you've been using in the past with a traditional security system. And so as you start to think about it that way, think about it more like a tablet, a smartphone, or a computing device, and you'll start to understand some of the possibilities, as well as some of the best ways that you're going to be able to, that you're going to need to use to install that product and troubleshoot the product as well. So we're going to talk about getting started. Now, every box comes with a quick install guide. This is we do have a full installation manual available for download on our dealer site, which we'll show you kind of near the end of the training. It's a great backup and has a lot of information in it, etc. But realistically, all you should need to get started is the quick install guide here. And again, this comes in every box. It's a big sheet that folds out, comes folded in 4s and then folds out, big 11 by 17 sheet. and it's broken down into 6 easy steps to kind of get you going. So step 1 is installing the hardware. Now this is something you guys do every day. You guys are the pros at this. Mounting panels, running wires in the wall, making things look nice and pretty, and kind of getting it hooked up and running is something you should be fairly used to. This is no different. We have a nice battery connector that plugs right in here, step 5. Step 6 and 7, I do want to point something out. We use a DC power supply. It's a 12-volt DC power supply. And so you do want to make sure that you get your positive hooked up to the positive and the negative hooked up to the negative terminal on the panel. That way, if you won't have any problems. Now, if you do reverse the polarity on that, we have a protection circuit on the panel. Not likely to cause any harm, but you do want to get that corrected, and it won't power up correctly if you leave it reversed. We also have a little bracket here you can see in step 8 that secures the transformer to the outlet. This bracket's reversible, so if you're using a center style outlet, and you can have the center screw. If you're hooking up to a Decora style outlet, then you can flip this bracket upside down, and the screw actually lines up with the Decora screw. So it fits both styles of plugs that are out there today. Step 10, put your retaining screw in the top and you're good to go. So installing the hardware is pretty straightforward. One other thing, I'm going to go back here real quick to install the hardware. We'll get to a little bit later as well, but you also want to be careful what gauge wire you use between the transformer and the panel. We recommend 18.2, no longer than 25 feet. Otherwise, you're going to have too much voltage drop on the line to power the panel properly. So be conscious of what types of wire you hook up here between the transformer and the panel. Should be 18.2 and should be no more than 25 feet historically. Okay, step 3, we want you to connect to Wi-Fi. So that's pretty straightforward. Here's the little walkthrough on how to do that. You touch settings, and when you get into settings, it requires a code. The default installer code is 1111. You go to system settings, and then from there it's pretty straightforward. Wi-Fi, wireless settings, Wi-Fi settings, and then select the network you want to connect to. If you've ever connected a computer, a tablet, or a smartphone to a Wi-Fi network, this is no different. It just pulls up the list of available networks they can see. You select the network that you'd like to connect to. If there's a password on that network, if it's encrypted, then you will type in the security code or the password called the network key. You'll type that in. We have a nice keyboard that pops up, and you'll hit join, and it will go ahead and connect to that network. Again, we always like people to connect to Wi-Fi because it's not required. You can run the panel on cellular only, but when the customer does have Wi-Fi in the home, you get a lot of additional features for free. Basically, you get software updates, the dual path connectivity, the speed, the redundancy, etc. So Wi-Fi is really important when they have it. Step 3, we want you to run a cell test. This will get things communicating between the panel and alarm.com. This basically syncs up the cellular module and starts the cloud server and the panel talking to each other. Simply go to System Tests, Cellular Test, and hit Start. Once it does that, the panel will start talking to the cloud server. All the information will download. The time and the date will set automatically. The weather will come in automatically. Any settings that you have programmed in the cloud will be downloaded automatically by the panel. So you have the ability to set up templates in the cloud. So maybe you want every install to be programmed the same way. Just by simply running this cell test here, the panel can actually self-program. It can download all the settings, all the values right from the cloud that you have predetermined for those accounts. So that really helps speed up install time. Step 4 is check for software updates. We always want you to check for a software update at the time of install because we may have released one in between the time you got the panel and the time you're actually installing it. Who knows how long that bounced around the back of your truck and sat on a shelf. So just like when you buy any modern device today, you always want to check for a software update. And if there's one available, it'll automatically download it. If there's not one available, it'll simply say no software update available. So to check for a software update, go to Settings, touch Installation, touch Upgrade Software, and touch Upgrade using Network. And network means Wi-Fi here. So upgrade using Wi-Fi is essentially what you're saying. If one's available, again, it'll automatically download it and you'll be off and running. Once your panel's up to date, you go to step 5, which is pair your security sensors. This is really easy. We have a process we call auto learn, where we detect the bits from the sensor automatically and learn it into the panel. Simply go to auto learn and tamper the sensor, and then go ahead and customize the sensor. And we're going to talk more about this as we get into programming. We'll show you exactly some of the options here and what to do here for security sensors, as it's pretty easy. And then step 6 would be pair your Z-Wave devices. And again, we're going to spend some time later on in the training related to Z-Wave devices, how to program them, how to set up a proper Z-Wave network, etc. Okay, so that's really it for getting started. Should be just those 6 easy steps, and you'll be off and running. I want to talk a little bit about the hardware, and after we get through the hardware section here, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll jump into the software and programming section. So going into hardware here, on the front, you've seen some of this already. Panel cameras right on the front. You've got your 7-inch resistive touchscreen. You've got your emergency buttons, your home button, and your microphone. On the back, I want to point out a couple things. We do have 2 speakers on the side. So one is a 2-way voice speaker. That's the left-hand speaker here. And one is a panel sound speaker. That's the right-hand speaker. And the reason we have 2 separate speakers is it just gives us better voice quality and better flexibility when using the 2-way voice feature with the central station. We're able to have the 2-way voice speaker and microphone on its own kind of isolated circuit, and the panel sound speaker, the one that announces, front door open and things like that, can be its own separate speaker. On top of that, we have a 3rd device here on the bottom. You can't see it in this picture, but that's the siren. So that's the actual, burglar siren or alarm siren. If I open up the back here, I want to kind of show you what the inside looks like. And again, everything comes pre-configured this way. Everything's built in like a computer or a tablet out of the box. All you have to do is open up the back, plug in your battery, and make any wired connections if you have any. So this is the lithium-ion battery here on the left-hand side. Up here on the top right is the image sensor radio built in. In the middle is your cellular radio. Now if it's CDMA, it'll look like this. If it's a GSM or HSPA radio, it'll have a little slot for a SIM card here. It'll look like that. You have your Z-Wave radio on the bottom. You got your tamper spring and your terminal block right here in the middle. Now there's a big red note on this screen here, and it says, "Caution, the battery should never be disconnected from the panel without following proper power down procedures. Failure to comply may result in data corruption, panel failure, or void of the manufacturer's warranty." Now that's a big red note, and it's scary, and we have a little asterisk here next to battery connector. We have an asterisk next to battery. If you ever open up one of our panels, we have this same warning right on the battery itself, and we even have a little flag, a little sticker on the battery cable that says essentially the same exact thing. So why so many warnings? Why so much, emphasis on the battery? Well, the reason is because we know that installers, the very first thing they're going to do if they run into a problem is they're going to go ahead and power cycle the panel. That's been the installer trick 101 for forever and a day. I'm not sure what's going on. Let me just restart, reboot the panel, and then I'll start fresh from there. And we think about this because this device is running an actual operating system, because it's a lot more like a computer. If you just unplug the power and unplug the battery, that would be like doing that on your laptop or on your phone. And we've all learned that on laptops and phones and tablets and things like that, before you open up the back of your laptop and crack it open and take the battery out, or before you unplug everything, you want to go ahead and shut down the software. And so same thing on this panel. So you can certainly unplug the battery and unplug the AC. You can reboot the entire thing, no problem. But before you do that, we just want you to shut down the software properly. So just like your computer or just like your phone, from the actual menu, and we're going to talk more about this later. I'll show you where that is, but from the actual menu, you can actually power down the panel and shut down the software nicely before you unplug the battery, before you unplug the transformer, things like that. Now we did build in a reboot feature as well. So if you simply just want to do the old technician trick and you want to do a power cycle, you just want to reboot it and bring it back up, right inside the software we actually have a restart or a reboot, again just like your phone, just like your computer. So that is built in there. You can just go ahead and do that. No need to even use a screwdriver. No need to take this off the wall, unplug the battery, unplug the transformer, and do all that. You can just go right into the software and reboot it from there. So we thought through that one, and that's the reason for all this red stickers and stuff like that. I want you to manage that battery properly. I will say, I'm going to go back here real quick. I will say that if you accidentally unplug the battery and unplug the transformer, and you kind of force crash the software, when you plug everything back in, it's 99.9%. It's going to come back up just fine. You're probably not going to have a problem. We have a lot of intelligent algorithms in there. We have backup partitions we can write to. There's a lot of intelligence in the software to be able to repair and come back up on its own the way it should, just like your computer will, just like your phone will. So that's all built in there. But nevertheless, you don't want to just do that on purpose, and hence the reason we built in the soft power cycle, etc. Okay, so moving on to the terminal block. Now this was right in the middle here. I'll show it to you. Right here in the middle is this little terminal block. It's an 8-pin terminal block. This is where you wire the power. So you see DC in positive, DC in negative, and then again notice positive to positive, negative to negative here, and how that's wired. We also support 2 external inputs here, so hardwire inputs. Whoops, go back here. 2 hardwire inputs. So if maybe you're mounting this by the garage door and you just want to quickly hardwire in the garage door that's right next to the panel, save yourself a wireless contact, you can do that. There's some confusion up here on what's normally open and normally closed in our industry. Most people would call this a normally closed loop or a closed loop circuit. That's what it is. You can see that the resistor is in parallel. It takes a 4.7K resistor. You can see by the way it's wired that this is a normally closed loop, or a closed loop circuit is the better term, the more accurate term. The reason this says normally open contact is we actually follow the ESA definition of what's normally open, and if you look in your ESA dictionary, it says that a normally open contact, not a normally open loop, but a normally open contact is a contact that's open when no external force is applied, meaning when there's not a magnetic presence, the contact is open. And again, in our industry, we typically now, almost everybody has cut over to the exact opposite. Everyone would call that normally closed. In actuality, we should be calling it a normally open contact and a closed loop circuit. But that's the reason for the formality there, and so don't be confused by that. We also support a siren as well that you can hardwire directly into the panel. So we have the internal siren that's built right in, but maybe you want an extra siren to sound somewhere else in the home. We support this here. It's a voltage out trigger, 12 volt DC, 120 milliamp max. There's a lot of piezo sirens that are going to fall into that category that you can wire on. Now, if you want to power a much larger siren than that, maybe you want to power like a 500 milliamp horn or something like that, or a 1 amp horn, you could do that. You would need to use a relay and a power supply to do that, but then you could use this buzzer output here as a trigger for that relay. So this adds a lot of flexibility to the system. You don't have to use any of this stuff. This is all just here to be optional and really add flexibility to your installs. Okay, so that's it for kind of the hardware and the setup, things like that. You've seen the overview, you've seen kind of the basic layout of the hardware, what's included. We're making pretty good time here today. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at a few questions here. Hopefully you guys have been texting in some questions, and Jeremy's been doing a good job answering those. We're going to take a 5-minute break, so why don't we come back here at 45, 46 after the hour. If you have to check an email or get a drink of water, use the bathroom, whatever, go ahead and do that now. We'll take a quick 5-minute break, and then when we come back, we'll jump into software and programming. Again, if you have questions, text them in, and we'll get to those. All right, thanks. All right, hopefully haven't lost too much of your guys' attention there on the little break, but we're going to go ahead and get fired back up here and keep moving forward. Again, we're making great time, so we'll see how this goes today, but we may finish a little bit early, but we'll keep going here. Again, please keep texting in your questions. I just talked to Jeremy and looked at some of the questions myself. Looks like we're getting lots of great little questions as we go, so please feel free to text those in. And we'll get to them as quickly as we can. Okay, so diving into the software and the programming on the panel, there is a couple different things. So when you look at the main user interface or at the home screen, you're going to see a green header bar up here at the top. You will see the primary user interface in the middle, and then you're going to have a footer bar at the bottom, and those all have specific functions. So on the header bar, this is a really great way to know the status of the system, kind of at a glance, tell you the status of the system and kind of what's going on. Green is good, right? Green is everything's ready, no issues with sensors, nothing's open, nothing's tampered, no problems, you should be good to go. You can arm the system and you'll be off and running. Yellow means there's a problem, it's not ready to be armed. Typically that means one of the sensors is opened or possibly tampered or in trouble. And all you have to do to see the list of tampered sensors is just touch the yellow banner. So if the banner is ever yellow, just simply touch it, and it'll give you a nice little pop-up list that will show you why it's yellow and what the issue is. You can then resolve those issues, and the banner should go green. Orange is armed stay, and red is armed away. Those are pretty self-explanatory. Okay, on the footer bar, you've got the settings icon. You've got settings, help, and contact us. We talked about help. That's where the help videos are, FAQs, things like that. It's a nice little help center. Contact us. That really means contact you, the dealer, right? Security dealer. And that's where all your information will be. You can post your company name and your website, tech support, email address, your phone number, things like that can all go there. So let's talk about the settings, a little wrench. To get into settings, it's always going to be password protected. And out of the box, there are 3 different passwords or codes that can be used to access the settings. Based on which code you have determines the level of access to settings you have. There's kind of a hierarchy. And these are the default codes. So certainly you'll change these at each install. But the default dealer code is 2222, the default installer code is 1111, and the default master code is 1234. Now the dealer code is going to give you access to everything on the system. There's nothing that the dealer code cannot access. It's going to give you access to every setting, every nook and cranny, everything basically. The installer code will give you access to almost everything. In fact, this is the one that most people use when they're installing. One of the main things the dealer code can do that the installer code can't do is right here. It's master reset. So if you just want to factory default the panel completely, wipe it factory fresh back to new, you'll need the dealer code to do that. But the installer code is going to be able to access the vast majority of functions that you'll need on any install. You know, sensors and Z-Wave and settings and user codes and all that kind of stuff can be accessed by the installer code, software updates, all that. And then you've got the master code. Now the master code, as you probably know, that's meant for the homeowner, the end user. This gives them limited access to settings. They can add and delete codes, you know, user codes, connect to Wi-Fi, and a few other kind of cursory settings there inside the master code. Real quick, well, I'm not sure we're there yet. I guess we'll get there. We do also, in addition to these, so these are the ones that are pre-programmed in the panel, we do support a total of 242 user codes. So that's a lot of codes. Probably never going to use that many. And there's some different role-based codes you can add, guest code, user code, master code, things like that. So we'll get into that a little bit further. But to get into settings, you're going to need one of these 3 codes, 2222, 1111, and 1234. If you get in with 2222, this is the screen you're going to see. Again, everything's an icon. It's got a name and a picture of what it is. And you're gonna, once you guys get a panel and play around with it, or if you have already, I think a lot of you probably have, as you know, you can kind of just surf around the menu structure just like maybe your smartphone and kind of go where you need to go and figure it out as you go. Now I'm going to take a break from the actual PowerPoint here, and I'm going to switch over to what we call our emulator. So hopefully you guys can, whoops, I don't want that. Hopefully you can see this here. If I can actually move this. Alrighty. So we have on the web, it's called an emulator. And I'm going to show you the URL here. Let me blow this up a little bit so you can see a little bit better. All right. So if you guys will go, or if you want to write this down, this is our panel emulator, and basically this is a simulator of a panel. So this will actually show you what the panel is like. You can click around, and we're going to use it today for training. We're going to use it to go into the settings and talk about some of the various options. But you see up here on the URL on the top, it's just our website, so Qolsys.com. And then at the end, you're going to tack on /emulator right up here. So go ahead and write that down because you'll want to use this in the future. You don't need to do it today. You can follow along with me here on my screen. But this is a great feature, whether you're a salesman on the door with an iPad and you want to kind of walk through the panel and show a potential customer, whether you're a technician, maybe you're troubleshooting over the phone and you don't have the panel memorized yet, you can use this emulator to tell someone where to go and what to do. Maybe you're a tech support person and you sit at a computer all day, and rather than having a panel on your desk taking up space, you can just have this emulator up on your screen. We're always updating this. It's a live site, so as we make software updates to the panel, we're always updating our emulator pages as well. And this is a great tool for you to use. So again, we're going to use this here today. I'm going to zoom in one more here past the trim ring. You see a little bit better. I'm going to go to settings, and you see when I go to settings, it pops up a keypad. And I'm just going to simulate typing in a code here. I'll just click on the keypad, and again, that's going to be 2222, 1111, or 1234. And again, here's what you see. So we're going to focus for the next little bit here on installation. I'm going to click on the drill, and when I click on the drill, these are the different settings I see. And we're going to spend a little bit of time in each of these buckets here, talking about what they are and what they do. So security account, this is where a lot of kind of the miscellaneous security account settings are. Lots of different types of settings. So this screenshot here is a little skewed, but you can see that there's a room for an account number here, so I can actually type in an account number. And this is just a supplementary field. You don't have to type an account number in here for the panel to work properly. Because this panel doesn't have a landline, there's no need to type in an account number here and then have that, go through the dialer across the telephone wires to the central station. We know what panel this is because of the cellular module that's embedded in it. So that's how it keeps track of it. But if you want to type in your central station account number here, you can certainly do that. It'll just store that as a field, though it doesn't actually do anything. The next three settings down are power management settings. So we have a couple different settings for power management. What do we do during a power outage is basically what this means. Do we shut everything down except for its core security functionality in order to maintain battery life, or do we keep everything up and running? So the default here is power management on, and when power management's on, we turn off a lot of stuff during a power outage. We shut down a lot of panel features. We make the screen go dark quicker. The LEDs don't light up. The photo frame doesn't work. All that kind of stuff gets shut down. So that we can have as much battery life as possible to get to that 24 hours that you want. If the customer, for whatever reason, doesn't care about that, maybe they want to leave some of that stuff up and running, they can go ahead and turn power management off, or you can turn it off for them. They're going to get a much shorter battery life during a power outage, but everything will stay up and running the way that it should for the most part. Home control and all that kind of stuff. We're going to go down here to supervisory signals. So lots of supervisory signals. Hopefully you guys know what supervisory signals are. With wireless sensors, they all check in every single hour, right? So every hour that wireless sensor sends in what we call a little heartbeat signal, or a little on a live signal, so to speak, and it gives us different information about the sensor, the battery status, its current status, open, closed, etc., things like that. And what you're setting here on the panel with loss of supervisory signals is how long does the panel have to go without hearing from the sensor before it issues a sensor malfunction or a sensor failure alert. And we have two different supervisories. So for smoke sensors and carbon monoxide sensors, you can have that be a different value than for your security sensors and things like that. So in this example here, you can see that my smokes, the panel has to hear from it at least once in a 4-hour period before it will issue a malfunction. And on my security sensors, doors, motions, etc., it has to hear from it every single day, every 24 hours. And again, this can be changed 4 hours, 12 hours, or 24 hours of the different settings there. You also have some control over loss of AC power and loss of cell signal timeout. So how often or how long does the panel need to be without AC power before it issues an alert, an AC power outage? You can change that. Same with cell signal timeout. CEU limits, hopefully you guys all know who CEU is. CEU is an industry organization, Security Industry Association. On the panel here, we have a setting to enable CEU limits or disable CEU limits. CEU makes recommendations to manufacturers for things like false alarm reduction methods or reduction tools. So things like minimum entry delays, minimum exit delays, things like that. And we adhere to that on this panel. If you have a use case where you need to make the entry or exit delay shorter than the CEU recommendations, basically increasing the chance of a false alarm, you can do that, but you'd have to come in here and physically turn off CEU limits. So that helps kind of prevent people making entry-exit delays abnormally short. Weather temperature, so is the weather, is it Fahrenheit or Celsius? You can change that here. Language you can also change from here. It can also be changed from the end user menu, which I'll show you when we get into end user settings. And then favorite languages. We have a language toggle on the panel that allows you to quickly toggle between 2 languages. And we have 3 languages on the panel. So from this favorite languages, you can set which 2 the toggle is. So in this use case here, you can see that it's currently set to English and French. Now the default is English and Spanish, but you can certainly change that to be, if you this would be a weird home, but if you really wanted it to be French as the primary language and Spanish as the secondary, or vice versa, you can do that. You don't even have to have English on here. One word to the wise here, or one caution, is that when you change the language on the panel, it changes everything, including the installer settings here. So if you change it to Spanish, all these settings will be Spanish. Change it to French, all these settings will be in French as well, which for some of you that may be fine. For others, that may be a little more difficult. Fortunately, everything's an icon and everything's kind of menu driven, so you ought to be able to find your way back here pretty easily to change it back if you need to, but just know that that is on there as well. And then IQ2 panel support. So IQ2, if you'll remember, is the secondary keypad for Qolsys. It's our Wi-Fi keypad. We have a kind of an override feature on the panel that allows you to allow Wi-Fi devices or not allow Wi-Fi devices, and that's what this setting is. So if you're going to use IQ2s, you'll need to make sure this setting is on. We also have an optional setting here that allows you to auto-learn a sensor based on open-close instead of tamper. And we'll get to that here in a minute when we do security sensors. Traditionally, when you learn in the security sensor, you tamper the actual sensor to learn it into the panel. But we also allow, through this optional setting here, the ability to open and close the sensor as well. So if you're used to that, you can do that feature as well. So that plays right here into, that's security account, that plays right into security sensors, which we'll talk about next. And once you go into security sensors, it's pretty self-explanatory. We've got auto-learn a sensor, we've got add a sensor, edit a sensor, delete a sensor. You can see the sensor status of everything that's learned in already, and you kind of have a manual or a sensor group listing here that talks about the different group types, kind of like a built-in installation manual right here. If you're curious about what a particular sensor group or sensor behavior is, you can look it up on this page if you need to. So we're going to go into auto-learn. We got manual learn and auto-learn. Auto-learn is the most used, the preferred method. We're going to go click into that. And when I click into auto-learn, you can see that it pulls up a list of all the different door window sensors that are already learned in, or different sensors, I should say, that are already learned in. And then at the bottom here, there's a little prompt that says press, tamper, or trip the sensor. Image sensor learning times out in 2 minutes. So once you go to this page, you have 2 minutes to learn in an image sensor, but everything else shouldn't time out. So we'll just go ahead and follow the directions here. So press, tamper, or trip the sensor. So let's say it's a door sensor. I would just simply tamper the door sensor by removing the cover, removing the case. And when I do that, the sensor sends some information to the panel. The panel interprets that information and says, you know, sensor XYZ is requesting to be added to your list. Do you want to continue? This is called the DL code. And normally that will show up here as well. On the emulator it doesn't, but it will also show your DL code once you hit OK. And that way you know that the sensor that you just tripped is the sensor that it picked up. It should match the actual sticker on the back of the sensor. There'll be a little sticker that says DL code with a 6-digit number. It'll match that and show up here with the DL code. Now, everything from here is pretty easy. It's all drop downs, and we do something called smart filtering. So basically, you want to start at the top of the drop downs and work your way down. And as you work your way down, we're going to try and guess for you what we think it should be programmed as, or what we think you're trying to do. And we're going to filter off anything that doesn't apply to what you're doing. So I'll give you an example. I'm going to start here with sensor type. So on sensor type, this is very, you know, plain English. What type of sensor are you learning in? Are you learning in a door window, a motion, a glass break, a key fob? This list scrolls, by the way. There's more: smoke, carbon, you know, medical pendant, etc., things like that. So those things are on here. And based on what you pick here, all the following menus will change and automatically adjust to what you're trying to do. So we're going to go ahead and pick door window. And because I picked door window, the sensor name automatically picked front door. The chime automatically turned on. The sensor group automatically went to group 10, which is an entry-exit normal delay. And the voice prompt turned on. So voice prompt is things like front door open. If I had picked motion detector, all of these things would have changed and kind of self-programmed for a motion detector. Now, but because I picked door window, it changed to this. Now, if this is what I wanted, if this was my first sensor and this was my front door and I wanted the entry exit and I wanted the chimes on, I could simply hit add. I'd be done. If this wasn't what I wanted, I could continue editing. So we're going to continue editing here. We'll go to sensor name. And again, because we already know this is a door window, we're not going to show you any names that are related to motion detectors or smoke detectors or things like that. So you're not going to see a name in here that says hallway smoke detector because you already told us this was a door window. Now, if you had told me this was a smoke detector, you're going to see that as one of the options. So this helps really speed up your install time and makes things easy. So again, this list scrolls. There's about 15 or 20 different quick names for the doors and windows, but the second option is always going to be custom description. And that'll always be the second option regardless of the sensor type. And this allows me to go ahead and give it a full custom description. You can see it pops up the Android keyboard. I could type in whatever I want, up to 24 characters. In this example, it's Sarah's bedroom window. And then I simply hit done. And I don't think I have it built into the emulator here, but I would hit done, and that would be the sensor name. I'm just going to go back instead. So that sensor name would appear here, and it would say Sarah's bedroom window. Now, the cool thing is that no matter what you type there, the panel has full custom text-to-speech. So what you type is what it shows on the panel, both in text, but it's also what it says. So the panel actually has the ability to read the text. So in that example, Sarah's bedroom window, if that was opened and I had the chime on, it would actually say Sarah's bedroom window open. So be careful what you type. We always have, when we do the live classes, we always have, or the in-person classes, I should say, we always have people type in some funny things there. But you know, whatever you type is what it's going to say. So just be careful what you type there. Now the second box down, again, I could continue and hit add, or I could continue editing if I want. The next box down is chime type, and we do chiming by zones. And chiming is the actual noise. It's the little ding dong when the door is opened, or the little beep beep, or whatever that you want the noise to be. And we have 10 different chimes or none. So you can choose to have, you know, different chimes on different doors. Maybe you have a back door going out towards a pool, and you want to have a different chime on that door than, say, the front door. You can absolutely do that because chiming is by zone rather than globally. Or if you don't want to chime at all, you could simply turn it off. In this case, we're going to leave it high wire. The next group down is the sensor group. And again, notice that we've filtered off all the sensor groups that don't apply. So here we're showing you the different group numbers and a plain English description of what that group is. So entry exit normal delay, entry exit long delay, instant perimeter, instant interior, follower, safety sensor, things like that. So local safety sensor, this would be a non-reporting sensor, it would just be a local sensor only. So I'm going to go ahead and pick 10, and I'm going to pick my voice as well. And voice is the actual voice enunciation. So chiming is separate from voice, and they're both controlled individually by zone. And again, just through this simple drop-down menu. So this is the enunciation. Sarah's bedroom window open. I can turn that on or off. And then I would simply hit add, and it would add to my list, and I could tamper my second sensor. And you just get into this revolving it's a revolving cycle where you add a sensor, edit it, hit add, tamper a sensor, edit it, hit add, and you just do that until your list is full and you're done, and you can back out of the auto learn. So very, very easy to quickly add a lot of different sensors. Now manually add a sensor is very similar, except for instead of tampering the sensor, you just type in the sensor ID here. So you would type in the 6-digit number. Okay. Editing a sensor is very similar as well. It pulls up the list of sensors you have here with a little pencil, and I can click on the pencil icon, and it takes me to back to the same menu where I can edit all the different values on the sensor and then save it after the fact. Deleting a sensor, pretty easy. Check the box for the number of sensors I want to delete and hit delete. It says, are you sure? You would hit yes or no, and you'd be done from there. And sensor status just shows you the status of all the sensors in your list. So the 6-digit DL code, the name, the type, the group you programmed it as, the chime type, and then the current status, open, closed, tampered, things like that. So it's a quick way to check the status of all your sensors. And then sensor group, again, I said it's like a manual. So here it tells me group, if I want to know what group 0 is, group 0 is an auxiliary pendant, it's fixed intrusion, it's supervised, it doesn't need to restore, it doesn't have an entry-exit timer or entry-exit delay, and it's siren 3. So this will tell you all the different values of each group, and this list scrolls down quite long of all the different possible group types that you can, or behaviors, sensor behaviors you can add to a panel or to a sensor. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. That's security sensors, very straightforward, very easy. I have no doubt that even without seeing that demo, every one of you could have picked up this panel, gone to installation, found your way to security sensors and auto learn, and then worked your way to add a sensor from there. So it's very, very easy to do. We're going to spend a little bit of time here on home control. There's 2 different home control buckets. One is a settings bucket, and one is a device bucket. Let's start off at the settings bucket here. And at the very, very top here, we have what we call device limits. So this allows you as a security dealer to actually limit the number of Z-Wave devices that can be added to a system. Some dealers charge by device. Some dealers only want to support a certain number of devices or certain types of devices, and this really helps give you flexibility in your business model and how you manage and handle Z-Wave. That's what all these settings are designed to do. So in this example here, thermostats, it says the current maximum number of thermostats is 3. I could turn that all the way up to 5, or I could turn it down. You can allow up to 5, that's the max. Again, smart sockets, the max is 18. Lights, the max is 30. Door locks, the max is 6. But you can turn those up or down between 0 and the max to really kind of lock out those types of devices or set limits on those types of devices. The reason I do mention this is every once in a while we'll take a tech support call. I think the default programmed at the factory on door locks is 2. And every once in a while we'll have someone trying to add their 3rd door lock, and they'll call us and say, hey, my first 2 door locks went in great. I can't add my 3rd door lock though. No matter what I do, I've been trying for 20 minutes, I can't add it. and we instantly know, hey, go into the Z-Wave settings, go to door locks, make sure that the limit of door locks is set to 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever they're trying to do. So that's just there for optional control for you. There's also some additional optional control. So out of the box, the master code does not have access to Z-Wave. It's not something they have access to. They don't have access to this page, and they don't have access to the device page. So they don't have access to either of those buckets. But if you so choose as a dealer, you can actually give the homeowner or give the master code access to home control settings and home control management. So home control settings, that's the page we're on. So you can choose to give the master code access to this page. You probably wouldn't do that. Most people don't do that. But what a lot of dealers will do is they'll come in here and they'll set these limits either at the panel or remotely from alarm.com. Maybe they'll tell the homeowner, hey, I'm going to allow you to add 1 door lock, and they'll set this to 1. And then they'll come in here and they'll give the homeowner access to home control management, which is the devices page. So then the homeowner can go in and they can add 1 door lock, but not 2 because you locked it out at 1. So this really allows you to mix and match different Z-Wave values, give master code access, don't give master code access, give master code access, but then limit the number of devices they can add. And this really just allows you to really control the Z-Wave on the panel according to your business model and what you're doing with Z-Wave today. There's also a toggle here at the very bottom. You can even turn the Z-Wave radio all the way off. The default is that it's on, but if you want to power cycle the Z-Wave radio, or if you simply want to just disable it, you can do that by checking this box on or off. Okay, so that's the home control settings bucket. We're going to move over to home control devices. And we're going to spend a little bit of time in here because this is really important. And Z-Wave is something that more and more dealers, I would say most dealers are becoming quite savvy with Z-Wave, but Z-Wave is very different than what we've been used to in the security industry for quite some time, and it's very different than like a regular wireless security sensor. So with a regular wireless security sensor, that's a one-way device, right? Typically, the sensor talks to the panel, but the panel doesn't talk back to the sensor. And it typically has pretty far range, somewhere between 300 feet to 600 feet open air on a wireless security sensor. And for the most part, in your average home, you can put them in and you're not going to have any range issues or connectivity issues, things like that. Well, with Z-Wave, it's a lot different than that. And I think early days, luckily we're a couple years in here and most of the industry is adopting Z-Wave, but early days we would see a lot of dealers try to put that thermostat on the other side of the house, right? They put the panel by the garage door, and maybe it's a big ranch style house, and they install one smart thermostat all the way at the other end of the house outside the bedrooms and the hallway, right? That's a pretty typical layout. And what they would find is that thermostat would have a lot of issues communicating and would work intermittently if it worked at all. And that's because Z-Wave is a very, very different technology than like a security sensor technology. It's in the 900 megahertz frequency spectrum, like 908 here in the US. It's bidirectional, so the panel can talk to the sensors can talk back to the panel, and it's what we call a mesh network, which means the sensors can actually talk to each other as well. And Z-Wave was designed to be a mesh network. That's part inherent in the protocol, and it doesn't have, because of that, it doesn't have very good range, not the same kind of range that your low frequency security RF wireless sensor is going to have anyway. Now most of your Z-Wave devices, they'll publish some type of open air range like 100 feet in their install manual, 60 feet, 130 feet. I see all kinds of different specs published in Z-Wave devices manuals. But in reality, if you've done any Z-Wave like me, and if you've been installing this stuff already, then you know that in reality, for a Z-Wave device to work properly and effectively, you probably need to keep it within 15 to 25 feet of another Z-Wave device. That's kind of the reality of Z-Wave range. I'd say real world 15 to 25 feet is, if you stick to that, you're going to greatly reduce the number of issues and number of problems you have on Z-Wave networks. Now that doesn't mean that you can't put Z-Wave devices further away from the panel than 15 or 25 feet, but what that means is that you need to build a proper Z-Wave network. So because I don't have a diagram here, but because the Z-Wave network is a mesh network, and because devices can talk to each other, basically each device, if each one of these little icons on my screen here was a device in the home, let's pretend, this device could talk to this device, and this device could talk to that device, and this device could talk to that device, and this device could finally talk to the panel. That allows you to build what I call stepping stones, or a little pathway, right? And that's what a mesh network is. It allows you to build this little pathway. And maybe this device talks to here, and then up to here, and then to here. So understanding that about Z-Wave, understanding that it's a mesh network, that it has a pretty low range, a pretty small range or short range, and that you want to add multiple devices, or what's called multiple nodes in a network will really help you design and install an efficient and reliable Z-Wave network. Now, so knowing that, that's a good starting point. We're going to talk about some of the other nuances with Z-Wave here. That's what this top row is for. We're also going to talk about some of the tools we provided you, that's the bottom row here, to be able to design and troubleshoot Z-Wave effectively. So the first thing you should know about Z-Wave is that Z-Wave, the actual devices itself, actually have a memory. They know if they've been learned into a controller before. And a controller is typically like an alarm panel or some other type of controller. And if it's been learned into another controller before, you're not going to be able to learn it into your controller because it's still tied to the previous controller. Now you might say, well, yeah, but this Z-Wave device is brand new. I just pulled it out of the box. I just bought this lamp module. I just bought this door lock, whatever it is. It's brand new. Therefore, I should be able to just simply add device and it should work. That's not necessarily true, because the vast majority of Z-Wave devices, when they're manufactured, they're tested at the factory. At least they should be tested at the factory. And they're learned into a controller there. And then they're supposedly deleted and wiped, right? They're cleared, put in the box, and then mailed to you. But that doesn't always happen just that way. And so for me, what I've found is a very best practice. We added this feature on the panel here called Clear Device. And what I do before, whenever I'm working on any Z-Wave, just because I have no idea where that device came from, I have no idea if it's still learning at the factory or not, I go ahead and I clear it before I add it. So we have this little spray bottle here, Clear Device. I click on the spray bottle icon, and you get a pop-up on the panel that says, press the Learn button to clear the device. So now I go over to the device itself, door lock, lamp module, whatever it might be, and I actually just press the Learn button, the pair button, or the mate button, and when you do that, the panel will actually go out and wipe that device. And that's something that's pretty cool about Z-Wave, is even though it's never been learned into this controller or this panel, this controller has the ability to wipe it factory fresh. And that's what this Clear Device does. So as a best practice, always clear the device first and then go to add. And once you go to add, again, we'll pull up the list of devices that are already learned into your network here, and you simply hit pair, and then you press the button on the device again, and when you do that, it'll pull up a very similar menu, very, very similar to the door window or the sensor security sensor menu. You see on here, we automatically, one of the nice things about Z-Wave is it gives us more information in the wireless protocol. So we automatically, you don't have to tell us what type of device it is. We automatically know that in this instance here, on this example, it's a smart socket. Or we can automatically know that it's a door lock or a light module or something like that, a thermostat. And because we automatically know what it is, we then define the options for you. We let you edit those options and then click Add if you want to after that. So in this case, again, it's a smart socket, and a smart socket's made by Qolsys. We have two sockets on it, a left and a right. So we allow you to name the sockets separately from each other. You could give the whole device itself a name, like living room smart socket, etc. And I don't have it built here into my emulator, but these drop-down menus are very similar to the security sensor menu I showed you. You can give it a custom name. You can give it one of the quick names that we've predefined, and then you'd simply hit add and it would come into your list. I'm going to back up here. Okay, so that's add device. So you now know what clear device is. It clears just the device itself. Add device adds it to the controller or to the panel. And one more thing on add device. You see here these node IDs. In this instance, it's starting at node 4. Typically, you'll start at node 2. Node 1 is the controller, so you're never going to see that. This is kind of like the zone list on a security sensor, but it's called an ID or a node ID. So you'll typically see it start at node 2 and then go 3, 4, 5, 6, etc., and all the way down. Edit device, self-explanatory. Pulls up the different devices, the types, the names. I can use the pencil, go back and edit the actual device, change the name and update it, etc. Now, delete device from panel, it's kind of the opposite of clear device. So clear device just clears the device. It doesn't ever have to have been learned into the panel. It could be brand new, whatever it is. It'll just factory wipe the device itself. Delete device from panel actually deletes it off the panel. So this would be used when you've added a device already to the panel and you want to go ahead and clear it out now. So for example, this door lock here, I could just hit that. Do you want to delete device 4? Are you sure? You'd hit OK or cancel and you'd be off and running. So that's kind of deleting it from the panel. And then remove all devices is a nice feature. Let's say you just want to start fresh and you want to remove all the devices from the panel rather than individually delete it. This will also reset the Z-Wave controller. So if you're having problems for whatever reason with the Z-Wave controller, you want to reset all your node IDs back to 0. You want to delete all the devices off the panel. This is like a complete wipe of the Z-Wave on the panel. And this is a nice feature if you ever need to use it. So you can hit OK there. All right, so that's adding, editing, clearing, deleting, and then removing all devices. That's why you've got so many different functions there. Rather than just add or delete, you've got a lot of different features because Z-Wave's kind of unique. Now the bottom row here is different Z-Wave tools. And the 3 Z-Wave tools that we give you, the first one is Rediscover Network. And what Rediscover Network does is this basically remaps that mesh network. So earlier I talked about devices being able to talk to each other. Anytime you rediscover a network, you're basically remapping that network so that the devices can kind of figure out who can see who could see the controller, and what's the best path for those devices to go. Now so after you're done adding all your Z-Wave devices, the very first thing you want to do is you want to come rediscover the network. So I clear my device, I add my device, I finish doing that for all my devices, then I come in here and I want to hit rediscover. And when I rediscover, you'll see a little counter come down, and it will rediscover each device as it goes, give you a time and a date stamp, etc. And that'll actually remap the network for you. Now, if you want to see what that network map looks like, you can come here to Neighbor Info. And Neighbor Info will actually show you all the different nodes you have learned in the panel, as well as any neighbors. So a neighbor to the back door is what can this back door see. So let's hit View on Neighbor Info, and it will actually tell me that the back door, node 4, can see nodes 7, 8, and 9, which are these different devices here. And so this would then tell me that it can talk to these devices. Now, one thing I neglected to mention, I talked about building a mesh network. I talked about adding multiple nodes, keeping the distances down. The devices can act as repeaters and kind of send information along down the stepping stone pathway. What you should know is that that's pretty much true for all Z-Wave devices unless it's a battery-operated device only. So if it's most common with that would be like a door lock and sometimes a thermostat. Thermostats can go either way. You can either have it hooked up to the full AC power, or what's called a C wire, right? And it can be running off the furnace's AC transformer, and be a powered device and therefore be a repeater. Or you can power a thermostat off of batteries. And most modern Z-Wave thermostats have gotten pretty good. They can actually run on batteries for a year to 2 years without the need for a C wire. The only disadvantage of doing it that way is that it's not going to act as a repeater in your network. Now, that may be okay, but you just want to be aware that your door locks that are battery operated and possibly your thermostat won't actually act as a repeater to strengthen your Z-Wave network. So keep that in mind as you're looking at these neighbor lists and neighbor info, and you're looking at the this back door here. If this back door said it could see node 5, your thermostat, and you knew your thermostat wasn't a repeater, then you gotta kind of discount that in your mind as that strengthening the network. So this will at least help you see And obviously it's good, the more neighbors the better, right? If this node couldn't see any neighbors, had no neighbors, or if this node only had one neighbor, then it would be relying on that one pathway to get back to the panel. So the more neighbors the better, the more robust, more reliable your network's going to become. Now lastly, the last installation tool or troubleshooting tool we gave you on Z-Wave is counters. And counters is pretty simple. It's just pure information. It's just pure numbers. And basically what we do, this won't help you a lot at the time of install because you're not going to have a lot of information to go off of, but this becomes more and more interesting and helpful when it's been installed for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever it might be. You can actually start to see the efficiency of the network here. And we've got it broken down into a couple categories: ACT commands, and ACT stands for acknowledged commands, okay, and failed commands. And there's some subcategories in here, but what you really want to worry about is acknowledged versus failed. So in this instance here, this is showing that 217 commands were acknowledged and nothing was failed. That means that this network is 100% efficient. What you want to shoot for on a Z-Wave network is a 98 efficiency percentage. So 98% efficient is where you want to go. And you simply get that by dividing failed by acknowledged, and that'll give you your efficiency rating. So this is a nice tool, and that way when a customer calls you and says, hey, I tried to turn my light on and it's not working, or I tried to control my thermostat and it never works, this will actually give you hard numbers. And by the way, you guys, all of this is accessible from alarm.com as well. So whether you're here working at the panel on site or whether you're troubleshooting remotely from alarm.com or after the fact, all of these tools are also available on alarm.com, because that follows one of our core values, one of our core mantras is that everything should be accessible from the panel and from a remote cloud server like alarm.com. So where I was going with that, if a customer calls you, you can actually see the numbers. You could come in here and you could see, oh yeah, gee, I have a lot of failed commands. Your network is 80% efficient. That means 4 out of 5 times it works great, but 1 out of 5 times it doesn't work great, right? So that's good information to have, and just really helps kind of arm you with the knowledge you need to build a reliable Z-Wave network, troubleshoot a Z-Wave network, and really kind of understand what's going on in the home in regards to Z-Wave. Okay, so that was quite a bit of time on Z-Wave. We're going to go ahead and finish up this bucket here, and then we'll take a break. The rest of this will go pretty fast here in installation, and then we'll take another 5-minute break or so. We're still making pretty good time here. Looks like we're about an hour and a half in, and I don't think we'll need the last hour and a half all the way, but we'll just see how it goes here. So timers, going into timers, we have 2 different timers. One is a normal delay and one's a long delay. And this just gives you flexibility at every install, right? If they want the delay on the front door to be shorter or longer, they can do that. If they want the delay on maybe the overhead garage door to be shorter or longer, they can do that. So it allows you to have 2 different entry-exit delays based on which type of sensor you're using. You can come here and you can edit these delays. So I could just simply turn these up or down and then hit save, and it would do that. Okay, sound. Now this sound icon is also on the under the app section just off the home screen, but it's also here in installation. I've got master volume, so here you can see I've got a volume slider. This will control the main volume on the entire panel, everything except the siren. I've got edit chimes, so you can quickly come back in here, and I don't have the page on the emulator, but you can quickly come back in here and actually edit sensor chimes without messing anything else up on the sensor, no other programming, just the chimes. So maybe they decided or you decided you didn't like the way it was set up, you can change that. And then we have a bunch of different override settings, basically global settings. So remember, chimes are by zone and voices are by zone, because we did that earlier in the sensor programming. But maybe they're having a party and they want to turn off all the voices and all the chimes without going in and individually turning those off. You can do that right here through this checkbox system. So I can turn off all voices, I can turn off just sensor voices. I can turn off just panel voices, just safety sensor voices, and you have separate voices for home control. So things like lights on, lights off, door lock locked, door lock unlocked. You know, it can talk when Z-Wave commands are done either locally in the home or remotely from like your app, and you can control whether or not it talks during home control commands. Chimes, same thing, same exact menu. So chime globally, all chimes off. You know, turn everything off, even though I set it to talk, or just the sensors, or just the panel, or just the safety sensors. And then, of course, you have your trouble beeps, ever infamous trouble beeps. So we believe in making this easy to turn trouble beeps on and off if you need to. You have different types of subtype trouble beeps, so sensor low batteries, tampers, panel tampers. You can have different voices or different types of beeping for each type of trouble alert. And you can even make the trouble alert timeout longer. So you see here, it's hard to see on this screen, but it says emit trouble beeps every 60 minutes. You can turn that up or down based on what you need, or again, just turn them off altogether. So it just gives you options on sound. Okay, so system logs. You probably won't have to use this very often, but this is a great engineering tool for us. If you're having something on the panel that you need help with and you just can't really explain what's going on, you want us to actually look at it closer, you can simply come in here. Once you talk to our tech support group, you hit upload logs to the server, or you can do it from alarm.com, and this actually sends all the metadata up to our server. So this actually allows us to go in and look at the code and see the timestamp of events that's happening on the panel and help you troubleshoot. So that's just an engineering tool there. Upgrade software is right here. Again, this is one of the important features of the panel. So we have a couple different ways that you can manage the software on the panel. You can manually check for an upgrade. So upgrade using network. This is the one I pointed out earlier. I would simply touch this button, and this will, on the emulator here, this will simulate an upgrade. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. You can see that it's downloading the software, and then it will go ahead and install the software. And then after it does that, you'll get a little pop-up on the screen. That takes a couple minutes usually, depending on how fast your internet connection is, just 1 or 2 minutes. You get a little pop-up asking to reboot. You click OK, and the panel will power itself down and then automatically reboot. And once it comes back up to the home screen, the software has been updated. So really it's as easy as checking for it. I'm going to go back there. So just simply clicking upgrade using network will automatically check for a software update. Now you can also upgrade your IQ2s. So these are the secondary keypads. So you can check for an IQ2 upgrade. You can upgrade using an SD card, or you can even upgrade using a patch tag. And a patch tag allows us to give you a very specific build of software. It's kind of like a keyword. So if you just hit upgrade using network, it's just going to grab the latest and greatest build of software. But oftentimes we work with our customers on new releases, or we'll have you doing like a beta test for us on new software that's about to come out, things like that. We can actually give you a keyword here in patch tag, and you'll type in that keyword and then hit upgrade, and it will go grab that specific build of software. So again, that's a nice tool to allow us to kind of iterate faster. The other thing we have is automatic upgrades. So again, all this up here was manual upgrades. You're physically requesting an update, but automatic upgrades, the panel will actually keep itself up to date. So the default is on, and the default interval is every 24 hours. So it says panel checks for new software every 24 hours. So it's as simple as that. Once a day, the panel reaches out to our server automatically and says, is there new software available? If there is, it'll download it automatically. If there isn't, then it won't. You can choose to have this option on or off based on your preferences as a dealer. And there's a third way to update a panel, and that's from alarm.com. So this is all here automatically or manually, but you can also do it from alarm.com. Alarm.com has some great upgrade tools that allow you to run a query, run a report essentially. That'll allow you to pull all the panels in your account that are eligible for a software update, and with a single click you can send it to all those panels kind of whenever you want. You can even schedule it to go at a certain time and a certain day and all that stuff. So that's the third way to keep your panels up to date. So lots of options there on updating panels, meant to be flexible to really fit your business model. The next three buckets are just some miscellaneous settings. So these are all settings related to siren and alarms. So you can actually turn the internal siren off by disabling it here. The default is obviously on, not off. You can choose whether or not the siren announces the actual alarm location, so like front door alarm and then the actual siren, or not, just the basic siren. We have fire verification, we have severe weather siren. So the panel can get severe weather alerts. That's an alarm.com feature, an alarm.com package. Things like tornado, tsunami, I think flood or fire, I can't remember. There's a couple different alerts that can be given down to the panel. What this setting actually does is determine, do you want that to be like a loud tornado siren, or do you just want it to be like a chime, a beep at the panel? And you get to kind of choose. You have a dialer delay that can be changed. You have your siren timeout. How long does the siren sound for during an alarm event? You can change that there. Then you also have water and freeze siren. So kind of similar to the severe weather siren. If you learn in a freeze sensor or a water sensor on the panel, do you want that to be like a trouble beep, like a chime, along with an alert from alarm.com? Or do you want that to be an actual siren, that there's an issue that needs to be attended to? You get to pick and choose that. And then lastly, again here, the default is off, but do you want to allow master code access to this menu? Yes or no. Security and arming. So you've got a bunch of different security and arming features in here. Installer code, duress authentication. So what duress authentication is if you have duress authentication enabled, it'll actually allow you to add a duress code to the system. If you do not have duress authentication enabled, then you cannot add a duress code. And that's part of, again, a false alarm reduction tool. Basically, it takes a two-step process to add a duress code. Step one is enable duress, and step two is actually add the duress code itself. Secure camera, does it require a code to access the camera app? Yes or no. Secure delete images, does it require a code to delete those camera images? Yes or no. Secure arming, does it require a code to arm the system? Yes or no. Of course, it'll require a code to disarm, but this is for actual arming. You can choose to refuse arming when low battery. You can turn auto bypass on or off. You can turn auto stay on or off. So auto bypass will automatically bypass any open sensors during the arming process. Auto stay, basically, again, false alarm reduction. If they arm away and they don't leave, it'll automatically downgrade to stay. Arm stay, no delay. The default for this is on. So if I'm arming stay, then there is no exit delay. Again, you can choose. You want that on or want that off. Auto exit time extension. If they let's say they arm the system and they run out the front door and they run back in the front door during the exit delay to get their keys, then the exit delay will double automatically, giving them extra time, reducing false alarms. You can turn that on or off. Key fob instant arming. Do you want to delay with key fobs? Yes or no. Do you allow master code access to these settings? Yes or no. And then camera settings. This is simply the camera up here at the top. Do I want the camera on or off? Do I want to enable it or disable it? And you can do that for disarm photos and alarm photos. So pretty straightforward there. Okay, and that's it for all the installer settings. I want to hit back. It's going to take us back to the main settings page here. And we've just now discussed everything inside installation, which is kind of the main bucket. We're going to go ahead and take a 5-minute break here. It's been about an hour. So come back at 45 after the hour, use the bathroom, get a drink, check your email. Again, remember to text in questions if you have them. We'll pick back up here on software when we get back. Thanks. All right, we're back here. Appreciate everybody's attentiveness, by the way. I just checked the little meter here, and looks like the vast majority of you guys are staying quite attentive and listening, so we appreciate that. I also just talked to Jeremy, so we're getting lots of good questions in as well, so thanks for that too. I really appreciate the interactive nature. Sometimes that's not always easy to do via the webinar, especially when we have this many people on here. So again, appreciate everybody for listening and being attentive. Okay, so we're going to finish off here on the software and programming. We've just spent the last little while on installation. Hopefully you have a good feel for what's in there and sensors and Z-Wave and some of the miscellaneous security settings that are contained inside installation. We're going to talk more about these more generic settings here in the general settings menu. The first bucket I want to spend a little bit of time on is system settings. It's a little Android bug here. And you see when I go into the Android bug, I have a couple different options. Now sound, that was accessible. It's accessible here, but it's also accessible in a couple other places. Brightness, you probably won't use very much. SD card, you can manage the SD card, mount and unmount it from in here if you need to. And date and time you probably won't ever use because date and time is set automatically by the cell chip. So these options are here, but the one that I want to focus on now is wireless settings, because this is where you'll use this this setting for the vast majority of the time. Every install you should be coming in here into wireless settings. I'll click on that. I'm going to click on Wi-Fi settings, and you can see that my Wi-Fi is on. Okay, I have network notification turned on, and then it shows the list of Wi-Fi networks. And typically this list will scroll here. It'll actually show you the different networks that are available. In this example, you can see we're connected to McLaren. It shows up here, connected to McLaren. But if I wanted to connect to a different network, I could simply just click on that network, just touch it, and I don't have it built in my emulator here, but I would touch it, and it would pop up a keyboard, and I could type in my network key. I can see that this network's encrypted, this one's not, this one is, etc. And then you'll watch the status change up here. It's very straightforward. It'll say obtaining IP address and then connected. So very, very easy to connect to Wi-Fi, just like a computer or a tablet. And that's all you need to do there on Wi-Fi, on system settings. User management. This is where you control and you can add and edit and delete all your different users. So again, 242 total user codes, including dealer code, installer code, and duress code. You can assign users different roles. So you see here that on this example, we've already got some users added here, and 2 different people have master code access. So you can have multiple masters, multiple users, and multiple guests. So let's show you how that works. I'll click on Add User, and I would enter the name. So my name's Kevin, so I type that in. I enter my user code twice, whatever you want that to be, and then you give that person a role. So it'd be guest, user, or master. Remember, master code has access to the settings menu, some of the basic features like adding and deleting user codes. User would be like an everyday user, and guest would be someone who you only want to have access to arming and disarming. So master has access to kind of everything on the user side. User has access to arming, disarming, as well as they can access the camera app, things like that. But they can't access any settings. And guest would only have access to arming and disarming, no camera access. So those are the major differences between master, user, guest. Expiration date, this is an optional field. You don't have to fill this out, but if you do, then that code will expire on that date. So for example, maybe you had a contractor at your house who was going to be there for the next month. You could go in, give him a guest code, and then set an expiration date of December 1st, and on December 1st his code will automatically expire from the system. You don't have to remember to go delete that. So that's just an optional field. You don't have to do it, but it can be nice. And then you hit add, and it would add that person to your list. You can then come back later and edit that person. You can delete it. The only one that can't be deleted is the administrator code here. That's the main master code. Again, the default's 1234. You can change that. This is usually the main homeowner or user number 1. You would just go edit that code. So rather than That'll be the default code that's already there. Rather than adding that person, you would just edit that person to start, and everyone else you would add. Okay, so that's user management. The next one over is about, and about is just a whole lot of information. And this is a really, really good menu for installers, just to help you understand what's going on with the system. Every time I do an install, I'm in this menu, making sure things look good, that everything's going the way it should. The first bit of information is all about your battery. So is the battery full? Is the battery charged? What percentage charged? What's the actual voltage reading off the battery? What's my software? Now, if you know Qolsys software, you know that right now we're on version 1.4.3. You can see this screenshot's quite old. This is 1.4.1, so this is an old version, but this will basically, again, if you know our versions, you'll know whether or not you're up to date. If you don't know our versions, you can simply go to software update and request an update. If there's one available, it'll pull it down. If not, it won't. Hardware version just tells you which version of hardware, some different chip information. You can get a patch description. This will tell you all the different updates that have been applied to this system and the last date that the update was applied. It'll show you the MAC address and the IP address if it's connected to Wi-Fi, how long the panel's been up and running, and then most importantly, here's your cellular information. So in this instance here, you see it says cellular signal strength, 6 bars, 31 out of 31. That's really, really good. It's full strength, obviously. It's max possible. And you have this little refresh icon over here. If you're looking for good cell placement, maybe you're in an area that you know doesn't get great cell coverage, you can actually get a real-time cellular report by refreshing this little icon here as you walk around the house, and it will actually give you the cellular signal strength while you're doing that, so you can find a good placement of where you're going to put the panel. It'll also tell you the IMEI or MEID, and the last 10 digits of this, so in this case here, starting with 951, the last 10 digits are what you use to register the radio with alarm.com. So when you're setting up the account on alarm.com, they're going to ask you for the radio serial number. It's right here inside the software. It's also on a sticker on the back of the panel. It's on a sticker on the inside of the panel. It's on a sticker on the box. So lots of places you can get this number from. This is just one of them. And you have a little bit of information about your Z-Wave as well. So the About menu is a great menu, both for battery and software and cellular. Now, system tests. This basically has a system test or a test for every single one of the radios on the panel. So like a Wi-Fi test. So once you're connected to Wi-Fi, I can hit run. It'll tell me whether or not it can talk to the router. Now, this isn't necessarily talking to the outside world. This is just talking to the router. I'll show you in a minute how to talk to the outside world. A sensor test. It will show you all the sensors that are learned into your system. And you simply open and close those sensors, and it will tell you pass. You either get no result if it's not talking at all. You'll get a pass if it just has a marginal signal strength, and you'll get an excellent if it has great signal strength. And this is based on the number of packets that we receive. So every time you open and close a sensor, that sensor, for the vast majority of sensors anyway, sends out 8 different packets of information. We only have to get 1 packet of information to trip an alarm or signal an event. If we get 1 or 2 packets, you'll get a pass. If we get 3 packets or higher, you'll get excellent. Cellular test. I'm going to go ahead and hit start here. You can see that it will talk to the central station, talk to alarm.com, and then return successful. Cellular test is something you'll do on every install. Again, remember this was step 3 on our quick guide. So this gets the information flowing between the cloud and the panel locally, downloads the time, downloads the weather, downloads any other information, and gets it going. So cellular test is very important. Now there is another test over here on the right-hand side. This is only for Verizon panels. You're not going to need to do this test. This is called an OTASP or OTASP. It stands for Over-the-Air Service Provisioning. And it's something that Verizon requires us to do before we get the panel to you. So this is something that's done in our factory. This pre-registers the panel with the Verizon network. This is not the alarm.com registration. That's the cell test, okay? So this is just this pre-register with Verizon, and this will already have been done before you get it, so you don't need to worry about that. Image sensor config. Again, this allows me to come in and see my different image sensors, get information about them. I can even do a sensor test, like a peek-in or a PIR test, so I can make sure it's aimed in the right direction. So lots of information about your image sensors, and I'll go back here, including battery level, signal strength. Image sensors are two-way devices, so we can get a lot of information from the image sensor here. Home control test, this is your Z-Wave. So again, in this example, I've got a light and I got a lock. I can simply hit run, and it will go out and ask for the status on that device. And then if it can talk to it, it'll get a pass. If it can't talk to it, it'll get a failure. You got a panel test. And panel test is a whole set of tests. And I can't scroll on this screen here, but on a real panel you can. And there's about 18 different tests in here. You can run them individually, or you can hit run all. And this will verify that it can arm and disarm, that it can take a picture, that it has photos, that the help videos are working, that the LEDs are working. It'll go through and do that. It can talk to our server and updates and all that. So it'll go through and do a whole host of tests here. And then lastly, IQ2 devices test. And remember, IQ2s are the secondary keypads. So you can actually go talk to an IQ2. If it's inactive or active, you can ping it. You can see the IP address for that specific IQ2, etc. Okay, so that's your system tests. Photo frame settings. So out of the box, this panel will turn into a really nice photo frame. It comes with 20 preloaded photos. Customers can load their own photos on, and this is where you can kind of control all the different information about that photo frame, how it works, when it lights up, when it doesn't light up, etc. So you can change the duration. So I want each photo to display for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, etc. The effect between photos, fade to black or dissolve, whether or not it shuffles or plays them in chronological order, and then the display type. This is the most often used. So the display type is, you know, when the panel goes to sleep, or when the screen goes to sleep, do I want the screen to go off? Do I want the screen to go to photo frame, or do I want the screen to go to weather clock? And weather clock is one of the screensaver options we have. It'll just simply display the weather for that day and the clock. So if they walk by the panel, they can see the weather and the clock at a glance without having to touch the screen and wake it up. So those are your options there. Photo frame start time. So if I were able to scroll up, it would show 5 minutes. But this is basically from the last touch. How soon do the photos start playing? 5 minutes, 10, all the way up to 30 minutes. And then we have a nice feature here at the very bottom called automatically turn off display and automatically turn on display. So maybe this panel was mounted in a location that's really bright at night, and they want the display to be off at night, but during the daytime they want it to be set to photo frame or weather clock. They don't want it off all the time. So this allows you to do that. Let's say I set it to photo frame, so it plays photos all day, and then I come in here and I say automatically turn off display at, and I can assign it a time. The default time is this, it's 11 p.m., but you can change that to whatever you want. And then you can turn it back on automatically the next morning. So automatically turn on display at 6 a.m., for example. And those are the defaults. So by default, the photo frame will come on, 10 minutes after last touch. It'll play all day, and then at 11 p.m. the screen goes black. At 6 a.m. it wakes back up and starts playing photos again. And that's your photo frame. And here you can see you can manage. This is from the apps menu here. You can also get to all this from the apps menu, photo frame, settings. So same bucket as the installation bucket. But this is where you'd manage all your photos and things like that. So we're going to go back here to settings. So that's your photo frame. System monitor is a nice feature as well. Again, it's just some information. Mainly here on the left-hand side, it will actually tell you if it's connected to Wi-Fi, what the IP address is. And right here is a really important one. It says Internet Available on the bottom row. That actually means you're actually talking to the Qolsys server. So you're talking outside the home. Not only are you connected to the router and talking back and forth to the router, but the router can actually get all the way out to our server the way it should. So this is a great area to check. If you're having problems updating the panel over the Wi-Fi or things like that, and you want to know if it's a server problem, a panel problem, or like a local Wi-Fi problem, this can help you troubleshoot that. Now here are the power settings I talked about, so panel reboot and power down. So early on in the presentation we talked about the importance of managing power on the panel, not unplugging the battery, power cycling, things like that. So you've got a couple ways you can do that. One is right here by panel reboot. So if I just want to power cycle the panel, again, I don't have to take it off the wall. I don't have to unplug anything. I just simply hit panel reboot. It'll say OK, and the panel will go ahead and reboot and come back up to the home screen. So that's a great way to power cycle it if you need to. Let's say I did want to work on the battery. I wanted to unplug the battery. I needed to replace it. I want to work on the back of it, whatever it is. Think computer, right? Before you work on your computer, you always power it down. Same thing here. So we would go ahead and power it down. You hit OK, and the system would actually power down. And my emulator is not going to do that, but a real panel would power all the way down. Now lastly, so these are what we call soft reset and soft power down. We do have what we call a hard reset, and that's the home button here. So I can physically, if I physically press and hold the home button for 30 full seconds, it'll actually hard reboot the entire panel. The only time you ever want to do that is if, for whatever reason, the software is frozen, right? If the software is frozen, you can't come into settings. It doesn't allow you to get in here and reboot this. So you can simply hold down the home key for 30 seconds, and it'll force reboot the panel. Now, we've got some safety precautions on that. If the panel's armed, if you try to hold down that home key, you'll actually set off the alarm and get a signal to the central station, things like that. So if you do force reboot, it's not going to lose any information, things like that. You're not going to wipe any sensors, and no data is going to be lost, things like that. So there's a lot of precautions around that, but it is a way for you to kind of force override the panel. Of course, you could always just unplug it as well at that point, but that's a more convenient way to do it. We do have an icon called Load Help Videos. So out of the box, this comes with 15 different help videos, like I mentioned earlier. How to arm, how to disarm, how to bypass, things like that. If you as a dealer actually want to make your own help videos and put them on the panel, you can actually do that. You can either copy your panels over, or you can replace the Qolsys videos with your videos. So that actually allows you to load your own videos and your own FAQs directly to the panel. You do that with an SD card. You slide the SD card in, you come here to load help videos, and you hit copy or replace. IQ2 devices, this is where you actually add IQ2s. So just like a security sensor, but these are Wi-Fi devices. You can add up to 3 of these. You simply hit add new. You type in the device name, like master bedroom keypad or whatever it might be. You type in the IP address because they're both on the same Wi-Fi network, and you hit save. And when you do that, it'll come in, and you can then edit it or delete it, but they're very, very easy to add. And the last setting here is dual path. You'll remember from the beginning of the presentation that dual path is actually simultaneous communication over cellular and Wi-Fi. So by default, this is actually on by default. So as long as you're connected to the router, you're going to get dual path on by default. If for whatever reason you wanted to, you could turn that off, but don't know why you want to do that. And if you want to run a dual path test, you can do that as well. So this is very similar to a cellular test. So this tests the cellular communication all the way to the central station and back. This will test the Wi-Fi communication all the way to the central station and back. Okay, and that's it for settings. So you guys should be programming pros by now. We've gone through every single setting, every single menu. Pretty straightforward. We're going to jump back over to the presentation here. Give me just one sec. The PowerPoint slide back here. Actually, let me do this real quick. Skip ahead here. Alrighty. All right, so hopefully you all can see my screen. We're going to go over some of the user features here, what the customer sees, some of the options you can set up for them on the, not inside the setting menu, more on the home screen, things like that. Of course, I've got a link to the emulator down here, but I already gave you that URL, so you can use that as well. But I want to show you some of the end user features here. So you got the home screen. You've seen it lots by now. Pretty straightforward. You've got access to everything. Once you click on, I'm going to back up. Once you click on press to arm, it takes you to another page, the arming page here. And on the arming page, you can arm stay, you can arm away. You've got a bypass window. You've got some other options here. One of them is your entry and exit sounds. So, for example, if the customer's arming at nighttime, maybe they want to arm stay, but it's late at night. They don't want the exit sounds on or the countdown beeps on. So you could just turn those off. And if it's also nighttime and they're not expecting anyone to come in, then you can turn off your entry delays as well. That's a really quick and easy way to do a nighttime mode, right? Arm stay with exit sound off and entry delay off. You got the bypass window. Open sensors automatically appear to the top. You notice a couple things here. One, this sensor is open, so my bar is yellow, right? My banner is yellow. I could press that banner, it would tell me what's open, or I can simply see it here in my bypass window. Also, because I've got auto bypass turned on this panel, this bypass check mark was put here automatically for me. Now I could choose to go close this sensor and it would unbypass automatically as well. Or I can manually unbypass it by unclicking that sensor. So bypassing isn't something new, but it should be pretty easy to do on this platform. Once you actually go ahead and arm, you get a countdown timer that shows you how much time you have left in the arming process. You could choose to cancel that arming process or extend that arming process with an extra delay if it was taking you longer to get outside the home as well. And of course, we have the auto extended delay. If you leave and come back, if you go through a door twice, basically, it'll automatically extend that as well for you as an option. Once it's armed, the buttons glow red, the banner turns red in this case because I'm arming away. My lock icon turns red, everything gets that consistent feel. If you're arming stay, you can see in the background here, you have an option for a little quick exit feature here. So this quick exit feature gives me time to leave without having to disarm the system. Maybe you want to, I used to say, maybe you want to go out into the front driveway and get the paper and come back in without disarming and rearming. That analogy doesn't work anymore because no one gets the paper on the driveway. I don't think you could if you wanted it. And so, I'll use a different analogy. Maybe you leave to work earlier than someone else does in the home, and rather than disarming the system and then rearming on your way out the door, you can simply just hit quick exit and then leave. And 120 seconds later, the panel rearms itself and you're good to go. Inside the camera app, you've got icons for disarm photos, image sensors, and alarm photos. So disarm photos, here's a good example. It shows you actually have a list of the last 20 photos that are taken, and it's first in, first out. So we store 20 photos on the panel, and the first one in is the first one out as it gets overwritten. It's kind of like a rolling photo log, so to speak. One of the neat things coming in our next software update that should be released here in about 30 days or so, we're adding the ability to remove these photos with an SD card. So if you had a photo you wanted to get off the panel, of course we are going to be pushing them to the alarm.com cloud here shortly as well, but if you wanted to physically remove it from the panel, you could slide an SD card in and actually offload the photo from the panel to an SD card. So that's a new feature we'll be rolling out with the software update here in the next month or so. Same with image sensor images. You can see them right here on the panel. We've got a 4-day forecast. That's the weather icon right in the middle. So it'll show you your 4-day forecast. This comes automatically every day. It's based on the zip code the panel's installed in. When you set that up in alarm.com, you type in the customer's zip code, and this gets pushed automatically every single day. Inside the application bucket, we have various icons with kind of some miscellaneous features and functions. So things like clean the screen. You have a safety sensor bucket, quick links to history and alerts, quick link to the sound app, photo frame is off the screen here, and you see the language toggle here as well. So the little globe, this is Espanol. So basically with one click, you can turn the entire panel to Spanish, and with one click, you can turn the entire panel back to English. Now some of you might be asking what safety sensors are. Safety sensors are actually typically non-reporting, though you can have reporting safety sensors. It's kind of like a little mini partition on the panels. We only support one full partition on the panel, but this is a great, maybe they've got this is a great way to do 24-hour zones that can kind of arm and disarm separately. So maybe they've got a gun safe, a medicine cabinet, a detached garage or shed, that they want armed 24 hours a day. So even though you can see my system is disarmed up here, the banner is green, I could actually have some safety sensors armed separately from the rest of the panel, which is a nice feature. You get the photo frame screensaver, and again, these are the factory photos that come with every panel. So out of the box, it'll work just fine. But if you, the dealer, wanted to load your own photos on, we've got a couple of dealers that do that. They load the techs carry an SD card with them, and they actually load on some marketing images at the time of install, so that every couple images will be something like refer a friend, get $25, or have a question, don't hesitate to call, things like that. You can certainly do, so you can use it as a branding tool, or the homeowner can put their own photos on there as well. And you got the home control. So home control, this is all the Z-Wave stuff. This is a big feature of the panel. Lights, locks, thermostats, smart sockets, etc. Here's an example of the thermostat page. Of course, you can do all this from the panel or from your app as well. The smart socket page shows you what's on, what's off. You have simple control over everything. You can get the details or the power measurement details on those devices. On the door locks, it'll actually show you the battery status of the door locks. And you see the check boxes over here. So if I want to lock all doors, I can hit the top check box, and it will select all the locks you have. Maybe you've got all 6 locks on here, and you hit lock, and it would lock all the doors with one button, which is nice. Or you can mix and match different check boxes and lock different doors. Same thing on lights, very similar user interface. Here we're showing one light that's not a dimmer, one that is. And then you've probably also noticed the red bubble alerts on the system. And this is, again, going to be very familiar for you if you have a smartphone, but different alert notifications. So in this instance here, this is showing under status, there's 3 alerts waiting. And if I come over here, it will actually show you current status, alerts, alarms, and history, along with a bubble for each one. So the current status will show me my entire zone list, how it's programmed, and its status. Alerts will be things like, power failure, Wi-Fi, loss of Wi-Fi connection, things like that. Alarms will be actual alarm events, and then the history is the actual event buffer. We store the last 100 events on the panel. And on alarm.com, you can go back, I believe it's either 60 or 90 days on alarm.com. So you got a lot of history you can go back through if you need to, different events on the panel. Video tutorials, here's an example of what that page looks like. You can see there's a list. It says play. When you play, it'll actually play the video. And then the dealer contact. Again, this is where all your information would go. Now, typically this information comes in here automatically because alarm.com knows who you are. As long as you have your information loaded in the right place on their back-end dealer site, it'll get pushed here automatically. You don't have to do anything. As soon as you run that cell test and the information starts downloading, it'll just come here. You can also manually type this in from the panel as well under the settings menu with a dealer code. And then you've got a message center as well, where you can push messages down to the panel. We talked about custom names already, but custom names are an option with full custom text-to-speech. All right, so that's it for user interface on the panel. I want to talk a little bit about alarm.com AirFX. Again, hopefully you guys are all familiar with alarm.com AirFX. We really view this as an extension of the panel. Again, back to our mantra with where everything is accessible on the panel, we believe it should be accessible by the dealer or by the end user. And the alarm.com dealer website is your tool to do that. You can program virtually everything on the panel from alarm.com. I mean, even the brightness. If a customer calls you and says, my screen's too bright, you can either walk them through how to do that themselves on the panel, or you can do it for them right from alarm.com remotely without ever rolling a truck or sending a technician. And I'm going to do a quick demo here. This is one of the things for us that we again really pride ourselves on is this here. I'll pull up my own system here, and I'm going to go to AirFX. I'll zoom in so you guys can see, but you can see there's a lot of different options here. So everything from adding a sensor to deleting a sensor, changing speakers and beeps and volumes and entry-exit delays and bypass and panel settings and user codes and dual path settings, all the way down to troubleshooting. So updating the software, looking at panel logs, pinging modules. There's a whole bunch of quick settings here, and really gives you full control over the entire panel. It's virtually 100% of the settings that you can access at the panel you can access here. And there's even a full uploader downloader. So if I go here to upload download individual settings, I can sort by setting name, and you can see that I can actually come in here, and I'll turn this up to 1,000 rows, and you can see that virtually all the settings we talked about today, so from dealer email and tagline to disarm photos and disable siren and language, I mean virtually all this, English, French, I guess we're adding Portuguese, I didn't know that. So English, French, and Spanish can all be changed here. All your entry-exit delay is virtually everything you can control on the panel you can control right here remotely from the uploader downloader. Even individual sensors. So my front door here, I can come in and I can actually see the different sensor data. The sensor ID would typically be here. The group, all that kind of stuff is here. I can request an upload. I just can do I have a lot of control over the panel from Alarm.com AirFX. I can apply a template. So you can either automatically apply templates when the panel is installed at that house, or you can apply a template after the fact. So again, a template's like a programming template you can set up so that techs don't have to program it by hand. You can just push a template down to the panel. And I can even do a customer backup. So you can see the last time this panel was backed up was on the 28th of October. If I want to back it up again, I can, and then I can actually push that down to a new panel. So if for whatever reason I had to swap panels, I can back up all the information from the old panel, install a new panel, and then push all that old information down to the new panel. That way you don't have to reprogram sensors, you don't have to reprogram user codes, you don't have to reprogram any panel settings. The only thing that cannot be backed up right now is Z-Wave devices. So Z-Wave devices cannot be backed up. You'd have to learn those back in by hand. Everything else can be backed up just fine. So lots of options there on Alarm.com. The other thing I want to talk about is the Qolsys dealer portal. So Qolsys also has a dealer portal. We talked about the Alarm.com dealer portal, but Qolsys also has a great dealer portal for you. There's a host of information inside the dealer portal. There's all of our full documentation for download, quick guides, install manuals, all the product documentation. There's sales and marketing materials. There's training videos and little video vignettes. There is a link to support. There is a whole host of information related to software updates and technical service bulletins, etc. If you don't yet have access to our dealer portal, you can see on my screen right here, it says to get dealer portal access, email portalaccess@qolsys.com. Just tell us who you are, give us your email address, and say that you want portal access, and we'll go ahead and get that created for you. And this will give you access to all of our resources and tools and things that you need to really support the product in a good manner. So portalaccess@qolsys.com. I'm going to do a quick demo of that as well for you. So let's see here. I'll zoom in a little bit on this screen. I'm not sure if I'm still logged in here. I'm not, so it's typically your email address. All right, so we've got different tabs at the top, so documentation. So you can see here's all the documentation for the panel, quick guide, install guide, user manual, software updates, IQ2 quick guides. We have manuals for all of our different products. You can see that everything's available here to download. You can either download in a full resolution, high resolution version, or you can simply view it in your browser at a little bit lower resolution so it loads faster. So all the different products are on here. And we have some partner products as well, like information on Yale Z-Wave door locks and Kwikset Z-Wave door locks, etc. So lots and lots of download information. Sales and marketing materials is a great tab. We've got links to commercials and different videos that have been made. We even show you how to make your own videos if you want to take some of ours and brand them as your own. We've got links to the actual help videos on the panel, both branded and unbranded. We've got links to logos and partner logos, so if you need assets for your web marketing or you want to create your own assets and flyers, you can. We've got a bunch of stock flyers and images, so images of all our products and stock collateral, so like die cuts and sales slicks and product and peripheral flyer. So I'll show you an example here, so this is a good one. Here's one of our flyers that's made. You can just print this off yourself. It'll show you all the actual products that are available, as well as information about the main panel. So all this is here for you. There's even a presentation and some partner marketing as well. So lots and lots of information on sales and marketing materials. There's some training videos here. We link you to our YouTube channel. We actually have a YouTube channel. It's just youtube.com/Qolsys. A lot of good information there. We have a series called Ask Jenny, where Jenny goes in and talks about all of our products, gives a quick brief overview of their features and what they can do, and then actually goes ahead and installs them herself, shows you how easy it is to do. So lots of different videos there. There's a support tab where you can get information on our tech support. So I actually need to update this. This isn't right. Our tech support is open from 8 to 8 Eastern Time, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And you also have a link to alarm.com tech support as well. And you even have a support ribbon on the side here. So if you just want to come here and click on the support ribbon, maybe it's not urgent, you want to ask us a question, this will actually automatically create a software ticket, or a support ticket, I should say, and we'll get back to you. You can also email techsupport@qolsys.com. That'll also auto-generate a support ticket into our system. So lots of ways for us to support you guys. There's a marketing store. You can actually come order some products from us. We have some pretty cool display boards, video brochures, things like that. You can actually order from here. Let's see here. All right, you guys, looks like we're going to finish about a half an hour early, which I'm sure you won't complain about. If you've got any Q&A, go ahead and type that in now. I want to show you, this is what the certificate looks like that we will send you guys. We'll get these issued in the next day or two. I think we'll be able to get it done pretty quick here. Again, the software is recorded who attended, you know, what your name is, and your email address. So we'll get these filled out for each of you, signed by an instructor, by me. And then we'll just actually email you a PDF copy that you can print off and use for your ESA credit. I know there's a couple of you that emailed in and said, hey, you had multiple people in the room. You guys were, you know, like one company was watching from a conference room. They had several people in the room, and they only logged into the software as one person. If you had multiple people in a room, let me know. We'll take a look at it, and we'll get additional certificates issued for those individuals who were in the room the entire time with you, but didn't maybe log in as a separate person. Right now, we're going to auto-generate all these based on the software that tells us who was logged in and attentive and who stayed the entire time. So if you have an exception, just reach out to me and let me know, and we'll get you taken care of. All right, thank you guys. I sincerely appreciate your time again today. We're going to stay on the line here quite a bit, or for a few more minutes here, answering any residual questions you may have. If you don't have any questions, you're free to log off. And thanks again for the support and your time. Have a great day.